Hi everybody, welcome to Unwind Design. We're going to be painting a Happy Fall Y'all painting today, and we're going to be starting with the primary colors. We have the colors red, yellow, blue. We have some black and some white, and we have some brown, okay? We're going to be having our large background brush, a medium square brush, a round tip brush that comes to a point, and a detail brush. Make sure you have a fan or a hair dryer or something to dry your guys' piece a little bit faster, and something to dry your brushes with off to the side. Okay, so starting off first, we're going to be picking up our large background brush, and we're going to be painting our background in a grayish baby blue color. So what that means is we're going to be getting a little bit of our blue, and we're going to be mixing it in with our white. And make sure it's very light. And I like to mix it on the side because it's easier to pull in the white instead of having to add the white to the blue. This is a lot thicker and it's a lot more pigmented. So if you add white to here, it's going to take a lot more paint versus if you take a little bit into the white and then lighten it from there. Okay, so we're getting a blue. Let's try to make it even lighter. Super, super light blue. Okay. There we go. So we have a light blue. And to this light blue, we're actually going to add just a little drop. Okay, look at that. Look at that little drop on my brush. Look at how small that is. Super tiny, right? You can hardly even see it. And we're gonna add that in there to just give it a slight gray tint. Okay, so colors, hues are what you call colors. Tint is when you start to mix black or gray, not black, gray. So you mix a little bit of black with white. Then that color or that hue becomes a tint. So if you ever hear, oh, tint it, what does that mean? Oh, add a little bit of gray to it, okay? A shade is when you start adding black to it and, no, it's, yeah. All right, so we're gonna be grabbing our large background brush and we're gonna be spreading this. Okay, we're grabbing our white and we're gonna be bringing this about maybe a little bit lower than half. We're going to be filling the rest of the top with that light blue. Once we are done with that top part to that baby blue, let me mix it right here to that baby blue. Add a little bit more white to that because it was a little darker. And we're going to add just a little bit more black. So it's going to be a little bit more on the gray side now. Okay, and we're going to paint this bottom half with that dark gray going down, maybe a little bit more white. If you see that it's getting a little too dark, we don't want it to be that dark. Okay, so I'm gonna actually come in with just a little white and I'm rubbing it actually on my gray. So I'm not mixing it on here. If I feel that it's a little too dark, I'm lightening it up straight on the canvas. And I'm gonna continue to do that, periodically picking up a little bit of water and bringing it down. We are now going to be moving on to our detail brush. And the reason we are using our detail brush is so that we can begin to outline what our pumpkins are going to look like. Okay, so we are starting off first and we're picking up a little bit of white with our detail brush. And what we are going to begin doing is right here on the bottom right-hand section, we are going to start making our pumpkin. It's going to be like a long oval. And we are actually going to start with the diamond in the center. So you're going to decide how big you want it. You're like, I want it about this big. So I'm starting on the middle of the right hand corner, right in the middle of that. So divide your canvas in half and then move on to the middle of the right half. And we're going to start off with, we're going to go a little bit higher. Okay, so we're starting off up here, maybe about a finger to 2 fingers from the line to the sky. And we are going to, okay, remember to make this nice and big, okay? There we go. We're making an almond shape right in the center. Next, we are coming off to the side of that. And we're going to do a line that goes in the bottom. right there. So that's one side. Again, you decide how big or how small you want this. When we go in and paint, you can make it always a little bit bigger if you want. Okay. Next to that, we're going to go in and we're going to do another little side of that pumpkin. Here we go. So then off to the left, we're going to do the same thing. And then we're going to go in and do another one. Right above this, we're going to come in and we're just going to start to kind of outline the stem. There you go. Once we have finished and moved on from this little section, we're going to come back and a little bit higher. Our pumpkin is going to end just a little bit higher, but we are going to start off on the final section or final crescent of this pumpkin. About halfway in the middle of that, we are going to start off our next pumpkin. And our next pumpkin is going to be a little bit taller. Remember that you are going to have to write happy up here, so you do want to leave enough section to be able to do all of that writing. Okay, so we're coming in here. And we are going to be coming down. We're going to make that crescent a little bit smaller, ending right there. We're going to come in kind of around the bottom. Remember, this is going to be a very long almond shaped oval, so it's going to be a little bit thinner towards the top. Here we're going to be going up slightly, and here we're going to be going sideways slightly, and we're going to continue that crescent one more time. So this one has 5, this one has 3. Okay, it's a lot taller, so you're not going to see a lot of the section surrounding it. Okay, so we are just going to focus on this. If you would like to go in and draw the vase already, just so that you kind of know how this is going to be laid out, we're going to be putting the vase about halfway up that pumpkin. And this is going to be kind of like a square with a smaller shape underneath. See that? We're going to try to do this a little bit bigger. There we go. Let me get some more water. Again, if your lines aren't straight, don't worry. We are going to be painting over it, so there's no pressure there. You can always go back, and when it's filled in, you're not going to be able to see any of those messed up lines there. This is just a quick sketch, hence why we're using our white. Okay, and right above here, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to come in, we're going to do the little stem, and we're going to start to kind of curl that. All right, so I'll let you guys catch up, give it a few minutes. We are now going to be grabbing our flat brush, and we are going to be moving on to our white pumpkin. So we're going to be picking up a little white, and we're going to add just a tiny bit of yellow into that mixture. Okay, adding just a little bit of yellow. Add a little bit more of that. And we're going to add a little drop of brown. Okay, that should give us more of a cream color. See that? A little bit of yellow and a little bit of brown, mostly white. And we're hoping to get a nice creamy color. Okay, so we're going to come in with that color, and we're just going to paint in our pumpkin. If it's a little too brown, you can grab some straight white and just come down and lighten that up. And we are going to continue that next to that as well. We're going to fill in all of these little sections. Again, if it starts to get a little bit clear, come in there with a little bit more white and let's start to kind of add that color in there as well. We're going to continue this on all of these sides. When we are finished with that, we are going to be coming in and adding some highlights to that and a little bit of some shadows as well. Okay, so I'm coming back with a little bit more white just to lighten it up. Okay. So I'm grabbing just a little bit more brown and I'm adding it to that light mixture. And I'm just gonna come in next to each of these grooves right here. I'm gonna scrape a little bit of that light brown just to kind of create an indentation there. Again, it's only a little bit of brown mixed in with that lighter color that I already made. And I'm just gonna go off to the left side of the right corners. And I am going to do the same on my right side. I'm going to be on my left side. I'm going to be going towards my right. So I am adding a little bit more brown to that. And then I'm going off towards the right and then pressing and then going over the line that divides it softly to create a blending effect. Again, I did add a little bit more brown to that mixture. And I'm adding just a drop of water if it begins to dry on you. And we're going to do that line with that darker brown. Okay, and off to the right of it, I'm going to mix a little bit of white with just yellow. And I'm going to begin to add a little bit of a highlighted section where I did not put that dark brown. Okay, so here we go, a little bit of white with the yellow. In the center one, I add the white and the yellow right in the middle so that it looks like that's most of the highlight right there. Okay, so I'm coming in, if it seems a little too yellow, mine looks a little bit too yellow up here. So I'm going to be scraping in some white on top. I don't mind if it's a little bit yellow towards the bottom, since we are going to be actually adding a little bit more yellow down here. But I do mind if it's a little bit too much of that yellow on top, if you have a little bit too much of that. So I'm coming in with a little bit of my white to brighten that up. Again, right in the middle. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to catch up with that. And then we're going to be moving on with more of the details on this pumpkin. I'm going to give it about maybe 2 minutes. So next, we're going to be coming in with our detail brush. We're going to be grabbing a little bit of water, putting it into our yellow. Very light. You don't want to add too much paint on there. You want it to be a little bit soft and almost see-through. So we're making a small glaze. And underneath here, we're going to just begin to add a little bit of some yellow lines. If it's a little too dark, it's a little too bold, come in with a little bit more white. There we go. We just kind of want to add a little bit of a yellow highlight below each of these. Really light, not too much. Again, if it's too yellow, go back with a little bit more white. This is kind of what we're looking for right here in comparison to this. This is a little bit too bold still. So let me cool that down a little. Coming in the bottom, making a little bit of some highlights. And there. Do the same thing down here, adding a little bit of some highlights below with that yellow and that white. So again, this is with yellow and white. See, we're adding a little bit of a highlight underneath it. And then we are going to be adding some water to our brown, and I'm going to be mixing a drop of black in there to make it a dark brown. Look at that transition, that brown versus this brown. Okay, we want it to be a dark, deep brown. Okay, coming back with some water, making sure that's nice and soft. Okay, again, this is brown, it's not black. Okay, so what we are going to do is very carefully begin to line from left to right our outline around our pumpkin. Make sure you don't have too much water or too much paint so that it doesn't just spill out. So here we're going to try to be really careful as we go around to try to be as straight as possible with these lines. Take your time, move slow. There's no pressure. There we go. So that you make sure you get a straight line as possible as you can. You want to make sure that you get that. So we're coming in next. There we go. And we're going to continue that all the way around. So slowly with that same dark brown, we're going to use our detail brush and some water to create that curve on the stem and to fill in all of that stem with that dark chocolate brown color. We're going to make sure to pick up enough water so it's easy to spread, and we're going to go over those curls, making sure that the color is nice and bold over them. So next, we're going to add a little bit of white into our dark brown, and we're going to add that right in the center where we created those lines to separate the pumpkins. We're just going to go over them to make them a little lighter. So again, we are going over the dark brown. We added a little bit of white to that brown, and we are going over it right in the center of these lines, right in the middle. We're going to cool it down a little bit. We're still going to have a slight shadow underneath of the dark brown, but we're just going to lighten it up just a little bit. We're going to tint it up. So shade is adding black, tint is adding white, tone is white with black or colors mixed with gray. So if I say tinted, I mean add a little bit of white to it. If I say shaded, I'm saying add a little black to it. And when I say we want to make it that tone, tone is a color mixed with gray, girls. If you want to add some texture, you don't have to do that, but if you want to add a little bit of texture to this little section right here, again, you don't have to. You can come in with that light gray and just kind of use that to create a couple of lines in here too, just to make it a little bit more diverse. There we go. So I added a little bit of that light gray. Again, this is a personal choice, personal stylistic choice there. There we go. We are finished with our small pumpkin right here. Moving on to our larger pumpkin. Again, don't worry, don't stress if you guys are a little behind. I am going to be stopping a little bit here and letting you guys work on that. If you're watching the video, you guys can pause the video and just take your time. There's no pressure in rushing it. So we're going to start off with our flat brush, and we're going to be making some orange. So we're going to start off first with a light orange. So we're going to add a drop of this red into our yellow because we are trying to get a lighter orange. So again, it is easier to add the dark color to the lightest versus adding the lightest to the darkest, because it'll take a lot more light paint to cool all of this down. Look at how much a little bit of red just changed that right there. So we're coming in with this orange, and we're going to be starting on the outside, just like we did here. The outside of this is what's that lighter orange. Okay, you need to grab a little bit more if you're still seeing it through to the back. You need to make sure that you add a little bit more, kind of apply it like you're applying some like you're applying some of that topping over a cake. I can't believe I just forgot. It's not fondant. Okay, you're just kind of spreading this over the top lightly. You're just applying it over the top like you're spreading over on top of a cake. Okay, so again, my brush is straight down instead of going like this and pressing hard up against my canvas. I'm lining it and I'm just kind of pulling the paint that is on here on top of that to make it a little bit thicker. Okay. So I'm going to be doing a light orange on the outside. Okay, and if you go a little bit over that brown, that's fine. We can always go in and color that in again, so that's not a problem. Okay, so since the inside's going to have a little bit more of a darker red, the outside is a little bit lighter. That's why we are doing that. So remember here, we did add a little bit of shadow, just slightly. We're going to be adding a little bit of shadow with this darker orange. So we're going to be adding a little bit more red to that yellow, and we get a little bit of a darker orange there. And that's what's going to be off to the center of this pumpkin. Okay, and again, to soften it up, you release your pressure right here in between this line. We don't want to see two colors. We want to see one. And we actually have a little bit more red from the bottom coming up there. So we're just going to lightly scratch it. Again, once this dries, if you want to go back and make a little bit of a lighter orange again, you can apply some more on top, and that's going to be another coat you're going to be adding there. So in the center one, we're going to be making it a little bit lighter in the center, and we're going to be making it a little, leaving it a little bit darker on the edges. Okay, so again, we have our darker orange off to the sides, and we have our lighter orange closer to the middle. Again, this is a little bit dark towards the back, so we might have to come back and do a second coat. So I'm going to paint this whole thing, dry it up, and then I'm going to do it again. So the center section is going to get filled in with that lighter orange right in the center. Since it is in the middle, we want it to be the one that looks as if it's getting the most light. As we start going towards the left, we're going to add a little bit of the orange into the crevice to separate that section and then fade into a lighter yellow orange. And we're going to do the same on the opposite side. It's going to go from dark to light as well. Don't feel bad painting over the vase a little bit. We are going to be coloring that in. Now that we have allowed our painting to dry, I am going to go and apply a second coat just to make sure that this is nice and thick. Again, it's going to be lighter towards the edges, and it's going to be darker towards the inside and a little bit towards the bottom just to add some shading, just like we added our yellow down here. Right here in the bottom, that's the same thing we're going to be adding right here, but with some of that darker orange. Okay, so we're going to be framing it and then adding some highlights on the sides. Okay, so again, I have painted it twice. I painted it, let it dry, painted it again, let it dry. I just want to get rid of this line down here a little bit more. After I do that, we're going to let it dry once more, and then we're going to come in with kind of like a deep red. It's going to be red with a drop of black to just kind of go around and outline this so that we don't use a brown. We don't want it to be too intense. So again, I'm going to give it about one more coat, and then I'm going to go back in there with the red and the black to just kind of straighten this out a little bit. So again, I'm coming in with a little bit more red. If you choose to add a little drop of black into that red to make it just slightly darker, you could go ahead and do that. I'm just using some plain red right now. And I'm adding it towards the bottom of the section to create a shadow. I am keeping it specifically to the crevices though, and I'm remembering to add a little bit more of that lighter orange towards the center and off the sides. Again, the red is going to be in the crevices and towards the bottom of the pumpkin, just to create a little bit of a shadow effect on our pumpkin. We are going to come in with our detail brush, and we are going to pick up a little bit of our red. We're going to add some water to our red. And to this red, we're going to add a drop of our black. Okay, so we're making it just a little bit darker. You know what? You could even grab some yellow in there to make it like a deep orange instead. So we'll go with a deep orange, some red and yellow, and some black. Okay. There we go. Maybe a little bit darker than that. There we go. So then what we're going to do is we're going to begin to outline the sides of our pumpkin here. So we're coming in off the right. And again, we're going to go nice and slow. And we're going to do the same thing towards the sides of that. So we're coming in with that darker red. Again, we're going very light. If you want to go in a little bit with that dark red and just kind of add a little bit of some shadows on the side here, on the side of this pumpkin, we can go ahead and do that as well. So this is going to be a little bit darker. And then to create that shadow effect without leaving such a harsh line, we're going to be grabbing a little bit of water. All right, so I'll let you guys catch up a little bit. And then we are going to be moving on to the stem and to the bottom of our cup over here. If you are ready for the stem, it's going to be the exact same thing we did here. It's going to be a little bit of brown with some black to darken it up. You know what? I'm going to add a little drop of red there just to brighten up that brown. Okay, so there we go. We're going with the dark chocolate brown. That color that we see right here. We're going to make sure to add a good enough amount of water in there. And we are going to be filling in the stem with that dark brown as well. See that? We're coming in with that dark brown, and we're filling in that section next. I did kind of like a spider web design down here, outlining each of these little dips while I worked on my stem. So the reason these exist is because of the stem and the way that it digs in. This actually creates these little spaces that we see there. Next, if you want to make it a little bit lighter, you can add a little bit of yellow into your brown and a little bit of white, maybe a little bit more yellow, just so that we get a lighter gray, just like we did here, or a lighter brown. There we go. I'm going to add just a little bit of that highlight in there. Okay, guys. So moving on, here we have our little vase. We're still going to be painting over that. But as you can tell, since our vase is here, all this section is going to be covered with some cotton balls. So we're going to be picking up our round tip brush. And the color we're going to be using to do this is going to be our white. We're going to start off first with our cotton balls, and then we're going to move on to do our vase. So we're grabbing our round tip brush that comes to a point, and we are going to come up and just kind of scatter, pretend that we have some branches coming up, and we are going to scatter some of these white spaces. So that's kind of what it's looking like. Let me zoom in a little bit more. We're going to do that there. Here's the line for the top of the vase here. We're going to do another one maybe down here. And we're just going to kind of scatter these around. Okay, we have another one up here. There's just some dabs of that white paint. Okay, so we are going to be having these stems come up. Some are going to be going behind others. Below that, we are going to be grabbing a dark brown gray. So it's going to be a dark brown. I'm going to add a little bit of black to that. And I'm going to add just a drop of white to it. I do want it to stay a dark color though. Then to this color, I'm going to be adding some water to make sure that it's nice and soft as I use it, so that it's the stems for my cottons here. So let's start off with the designs that are on the cotton stems. Okay. We're going to start off and make it look like it's one that branches into a few. So let's pretend that our top is right here. Okay, so we are going to be coloring that in, so that's fine. It's not a problem. Okay, so from here, we're going to be going up and kind of following this. So in between each one, we are making 3 lines. 1, 2, 3. And we're having that one stem branch into several different ones. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And every single one we have the bottoms holding onto the actual stems. If you see some blank spaces like right here, you can totally go in and just create little leaves. They're going to be a little bit thicker in the bottom. We're going to wiggle and we're going to release pressure as we get to the top. And you can feel free to do that nice and small, some a little bit bigger than others. They don't all have to be the same size. And look at that. We start to create our little leaves going on here. So let's see what else we can do. We have another one coming up here. This one can kind of just be an empty branch with a little bit of a leaf on it. From there, we have this one. If we at any point later on want to go in and add maybe a couple more, we can totally do that. And I'm going to continue to add these details on all of my little cotton balls here. So just a quick message. We are going to have several branches coming from the bottom. So if it looks like some of these are branching out, that's what we're doing here. We're getting some that are branching out. Then we are coming back, like for example, right here we have these. I'm going to start that branch all the way from the bottom. And I'm just going to have it go through partially like the background of this section. I'm going to expand some branches out. Here's one from that back one. I'm going to come into the side here. Here's another one. Here's another one that's part of that one. Okay, we have yet another one back here. We're adding some leaves there in between the gaps so that it doesn't look so empty. And let's see, let's pretend we have this one coming this way. And this one's attached to these over here. There we go. Same thing down here. This one has to belong somewhere. So we're making this one attached to this line and adding those lines in there. So then by there, we should have our cotton already kind of painted on. Now I'm going to go and just fill in some sections that I think still need some leaves so that it doesn't look so bald. It doesn't look so empty. We want it to look a little bit full. So I'm just going to add a little bit more details here with those leaves. So when you guys are done with that, we're going to be moving on to the vase section of it. And for our vase section, we are going to be using our square brush, and we're going to be using a dark gray that's going to be faded to a lighter gray. Okay, so I'm coming in with my paint, and my gray is going to have just a little bit of brown in it. So you know what? We have this brown right here. Let's mix a little bit more black into that, and let's just pick up our white and mix it in there. There we go. And now we have like a brown, a deep brown gray. Okay, let me get a little bit more black maybe. There we go. So we're coming with that dark color, and we are painting off of the left side with that darker color. We're filling it in with that dark gray. And then as we work our way more towards the right, we're going to be having a little bit of a lighter color. See, and we're going to have it fading from a light gray to a dark gray. Then you're going to grab that dark gray, and we're going to do a line towards the top. Brush that down. A little bit more of that dark gray from the bottom up. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to catch up with this, and then we're going to move on. So we are coming back in with a little bit of that dark brown. And I'm actually going to be adding a little bit of a darker brown. And we're creating these little arms here. It's just a little accent to the vase. If you don't want to add those lines, you don't have to. There's no pressure. There we go. If you want to go in there and maybe scrape a little bit of white over the top of that. We are supposed to have it just a little bit darker than the rest of the painting. Okay. So moving on from that, we are going to begin to do our writing. So what I like to do is I like to grab some kind of a pencil. Okay. So I'm going to be grabbing a pencil. And just to make sure I like my writing before I start to write, because it's really easy to just mess up, specifically when you're playing with your black. You don't want to have to erase the whole thing and then paint a baby blue again by layers. It's going to take too long. So we're going to start off first with our happy. Our happy has to fit up here. So since I have this big gap here, I'm going to use some of that for my A, and then I'm going to get my P's closer to this side so that they can drag below. So I'm coming in here, doing my H, bringing it in from the side. Okay, this line kind of curves. Let me zoom in so you guys can see how I'm writing that. Okay, so I went sideways, came up, and then I curved it down, kind of like a C, a little bit of a C. Then we're going straight up that way. And I'm gonna kind of write over my pumpkin there. Okay, so I did HA, coming back up, actually extending a little bit outwards there. And then from there, we're coming down. And we're gonna make our P. So our P actually curves, then comes back up again. Okay. Another P. This right here is gonna go. You know what? I'm lifting up my H a little bit. See, that's why we need a little bit of that pencil. There you go. Putting our P, make sure it dips just as low. And then we're going to be curving up for our Y. Happy. And then here we're going to have fall underneath. Nice and long. So we're going to go happy. And these are going to be straighter lines. They're not going to be in cursive. So it's fall. And then we're having the yaw attached to this side of the pumpkin. So it's yaw. And this line comes in from the side of our pumpkin and comes out on the side of our canvas. So all we have left is to come in with our black and begin to draw this out. So I'm going to start from the left and then I'm going to work my way down just so that I don't put my hand on anything. Okay, so for this we are going to be using our detail brush. Okay, you're going to have to make sure that your paint is nice and liquidy so that it flows like ink. And we're just going to begin to write these words. I'm going to show you how I usually do calligraphy. I tend to go very lightly up, and then as I go down, I press a little bit harder. So you're going to see every time that my line goes down, it's going to get a little bit thicker. Okay, and I'm going to continue to do that all the way down on the top. These lines, I'm not going to apply so much pressure, so they're going to be a little bit thinner. And then these are going to go back to being thicker again. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. All right, guys. So after you guys are done with this, I love it. It's going to be super cute. We are going to add our signature. Now I need to find my little brush because it disappeared. There we go. So we're grabbing a little bit of our black again, nice and soft. And then off to the right-hand side here, we're going to add our signature. And after writing your signature, you are done. So thank you so much for painting with me. Hopefully I see you soon. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure to check out our videos on our website at www.unwindanddesign.org.